Hello, it's Michelle Gilmartin here, and it's my favorite month of the year. So today we're doing the Kimberbell digital dealer exclusive for October, which is a dimensional Halloween bat jar topper. I love Halloween. So we're going to have some fun with this one. So let's go over what you need and what's in your kit, and then we can get started. First of all, you're going to need some thread. So you're going to, I'm just using the exquisite colors and one isocord, but you might want to use glide colors or whatever colors you have. You'll need a black, you'll need a dark gray, you'll need a lavender or purple. You'll also need a light gray and a pink. And from the light gray and the pink that you choose, you'll also need a partially wound bobbin in those colors. And then you'll need a traditional embroidery bobbin just in white. We are doing this regular size jar topper, so not the wide mouth. And you can do it in a 4x4 hoop if you want. If the design will probably fit maybe in a 4x4 hoop, but you'd have to accommodate the wings, and they take a little bit of space. So we're going to do it in a 5x7 hoop. So I have this, and I'm going to set it aside. And then I'm going to need just some basic supplies. Like I have some Kimberbell paper tape, but I also have some KK100 and my dime spray tins, because sometimes it's just easier and faster just to give it a little of the spray based and just kind of be on your way. Don't have to worry about sewing over the tape. You don't have to worry about picking tape out of stitches. And it's just faster. You're also going to need some utensils. I love these OESD snips because I love the little curve here for cutting tails and for cutting whatever knots around the knots and stuff and the tie-offs, because that little hook grabs my thread and it makes me get a clean cut to get that off. You're going to need some scissors to trim with. So these are double curves in 2 sizes. Normally I prefer the small ones, but I always have the larger ones handy just in case the small ones aren't up to par. They're double curves so that you can actually put them inside your hoop and still have a curved line to cut with. And then I always have these out. I love these that have this little, because this little point up here is like the sharpest, snippiest point you ever want to work with. So if I have any really tight corners that I need to like cut right into the corner, usually I don't have enough. It's not sharp enough right at the point of my double curves. So I like these as well. In your kits, first of all, your kit, if you bought your kit from A1 Vacuum and Sewing, yours came with the jar and the jar lid. If you did not, the jars and the lids can be had on Amazon. All right, let's look at our stabilizer. So we have a piece of wash away stabilizer. We have a piece of mesh cutaway stabilizer. We have some topping, some clear topper, and we have some SF101 cut in a couple of different sizes that we'll be backing our fabric with. We have some embroidery topping. So this is for when you're going to sew the black eyes in the mouth right over the top of this and then tear the excess away. It really blocks out any chance of your bobbin thread coming through, in white or, and not so much in the black, but some of the other colors, it prevents the show through. You have a piece of flex foam. You have purple fabric in 2 different sizes, one for the backing of the jar and the other one for the bat wings. And then you have this really nice soft gray felt that is going to be our bat's wings, the bat's face, ears, whatever. So we have all of these. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to have 2 files that we're going to work with. The jar lid itself will actually sew out in a 4x4 hoop. I'm just going to go ahead and use my 5x7 hoop. And your kits were cut to allow for that use of a 5x7 hoop, even though it fits in a 4x4. If you're sewing at home using your own stuff, you might want to peruse the 4x4 hoop. We have a 5x7 file that's going to be the wings and the ears, and then we have the file itself. We are going to begin our project by applying the fusible backing to the wrong side of the lower wings and the background fabric. So I'm going to grab my ironing stuff and I'm going to bring it over here to my mat. All right, so I have my 2 pieces of purple fabric. They are wrong side up. I always like to start this with a little bit of best press to kind of give it some body. I'm going to go ahead and press that in. Kind of a little bit of body to the fabric from the best press. Makes it a little easier to trim when the trim the appliques, I think. And then I'm going to take my pieces of SF101, which are cut the same size as the fabric, and I'm going to put the sticky side down. You can tell which one is the sticky side if you feel it, it's kind of rough. So that's got the glue. That's the glue side. That goes down against the back wrong side of your fabric. And then I'm going to fuse. So when you fuse, it's not one of these. When you fuse, you put the iron over it and you hold it for about 8 to 10 seconds. Lift up. I'm going to move to a different location, which is the other piece this time. And then the other side of this. And then I'm going to go also let it cool a little bit. And if you feel like you didn't get a good fuse, you can still go over it another time. You just don't want to go like this because you're not really applying even pressure that way. All right, I'm going to let those 2 pieces cool for just a moment. So if you are following along in the instructions, we have just completed step 1. We have ironed the fusible backing to the wrong side of the lower wings and the background fabric. So we want to hoop our wash away stabilizer. So let's see how we tell the difference. I'm going to come down in a little closer here. All right. So if you look at this, this is kind of polka dotty and sheer. This is our wash away. So if you look at it, you can see like little pin dots in it. This is our cutaway. It looks a little bit different. It's not quite as sheer, and it feels like a mesh. It's kind of crinkly. Whereas this, not so much. So this has dots, this doesn't. So we're going to hoop our wash away. So that means this piece. Now that these are cool, I can take them and move them off my mat. I'm going to hoop our wash away. And you can tell if your inner ring is going the correct direction because you'll have a little arrow that points up here with your mount on the left side. You can go ahead and finger tighten that. And if you need to pull slack out, you're going to pull towards, I'm going to exaggerate, you're going to pull towards the center. Sometimes what happens is if you go, oh, it's got slack, and you pull it out, it pops the inner ring out. All right. So I am good to go. Let's see what comes up next. Looks like I'm loading an embroidery design. So I will meet you over at the machine. All right, so I have opened up my USB that has the designs on it. We want to be selecting either the 4x4 regular mouth for the topper part or the 5x7 regular mouth for the wings. So the other ones are going to say wide mouth. Those aren't the sizes that we want. So we're going to go ahead and select the wing design, and I'm going to go ahead and set that design. So let me grab my instructions really quick here. I'm going to touch embroidery. I have a plain embroidery bobbin in for now. It's the directions are going to tell me when it's time to change to the bobbins that I pre-wound. So if you'll look at your directions, you'll see that your directions host either a series of numbers for steps and a series of numbers for thread changes. Those thread changes will usually match up here if you're on a baby lock or a brother machine. So when we look at the direction, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc., color stop 1, color stop 2, color stop 3. So it just means that it's time for you to change the thread. So usually in the beginning, it doesn't, when you see that dashed line like that, doesn't matter what color thread you use, because it's just a placement line. So normally, because I'm lazy, I really don't want to have to change the thread again. So I'm going to look at what is going to be the first color that I'm going to use. And that's the thread I'm going to go ahead and put on for the placement. So this looks to me like I'm going to be utilizing the dark gray thread first. Let me look. Looks kind of dark to me. Yes, I am using the dark gray. The light gray will have a dot in there. So I'm going to grab my dark gray thread first. Here it is right here. And I'm going to go ahead and pop that one on even for my placement line, because it doesn't matter. I won't see the placement line later, but it will save me changing thread at least once. This is a 2-part design, meaning we will sew the wings and the ears to the bat. And then we will sew the actual jar topper. So I'm going to go ahead and press go. And from now on, I'm just going to leave it on the stitching part, not so much the screen part. I am sewing color stop 1, which is my placement line. All right, so the next step is for me to place my ear front felt. And that, if I look at the front page at the sizes that were cut, that's your 2x2, and that's going to be the front of the ear. So I'm going to go ahead, rather than tape, I'm going to go ahead and give this just a little spritz with some spray based, and that's how I'm going to stick them down. All right, so I'm breaking over here to the table, and I've got my dime spray tent, and I'm just going to put that piece of fabric in there. When you use spray based, it really is just a little bit. That's it. I don't need any more than that. I don't have to saturate it. It just has to stay. It just has to stay in place long enough for me to do a tack down stitch. So I'm going to flip back over to the machine, and we'll get this first step completed. All right, so I'm just going to set that down. And then let's look at what the next step is. Place the ears front felt, stitch the ears front felt tack down line, and trim the felt close to the stitch line. All right, so let's do that. All right, my next step is to take this completed stitch out over to the table, use my scissors and trim close to, but not through that stitching line. All right, so I am going to take my curved scissors, and I'm going to begin by trimming close to, but not through these stitching lines. So I like to go at it slow. I like to use really just the front half of the scissor. So just right here, I don't really open them all the way, because that allows me to maintain an even trim line around the piece. And you can see that even though I used spray based, these pieces are lifting up quite easily because I didn't use a bunch of spray based. So trimming close to, but not through that stitching line. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take that back over to the machine. Little fuzz there from where I trimmed. And we're going to sew the inner ear detail. All right, if you're following along on the directions, we are now on step number 8, color stop number 3. So we're going to change to the pink to stitch the inner, what is that? Oh, those wings or ears. We're going to stitch the inner ear detail. So I've got my gray off, still just using white bobbin thread at this point. It hasn't told me to change to the other yet. All right, step 10 is, or step 9, I'm sorry, is to stitch the lower wings placement line. So again, this is a stitch that isn't going to show. I'm looking forward to the stitches, and it looks like we're going to be applying gray to the back, to be the back, and it looks like it's actually going to do some finishing stitch on the purple. But I think I'm still going to go ahead and change. I don't know for sure, so I'm going to change out. I'm just going to change out to the purple. So I have my purple thread. I'll go ahead and pick that one. And this is going to sew the placement line for the purple fabric for the wings. Again, if you are following along, we are currently on step number 9, color stop number 4. We're doing the placement lines. And then for this next step, we are going to need to use our purple fabric. I'm going to go ahead and give this just a little squirt with in the tent over there with some KK 100 based, and I'm going to use that instead of tape. There likely will come a time that I will prefer the tape over the spray, but for right now, the spray works well. Just to make sure that I cover everything. And I'm going to go ahead and run that tack down line. So we are actively running. We are on step number 11, and we are running color stop number 5. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move over to the table because we're going to complete the next 2 steps. So if you are following along, we're moving over. We're going to trim the fabric close to the stitch line, which is step number 12. And then if you turn over, you're going to see that we're going to remove the hoop from the machine, which it should be removed anyway when I trim, I suppose. But we're going to place the back felt fabric to the back of the hoop. And for that, I will use tape. So I'll meet you over at the table. All right, so I'm going to complete the same step of trimming close to, but not through the stitching line. Sometimes in cases like this, I sometimes find it easier to just cut through the middle first. So I'm not dragging everything from the other one along with me. So I'm just going to do the same as I did before. I'm going to trim close to, but not through my stitching line. So if you used Best Press on yours too, you should be noticing that you're getting less fraying as you're trimming, because the Best Press kind of gives them the fabric some body. And then of course the SF101 kind of seals the deal with that. It's a woven backing, so it's going to grab onto those fibers and not really let them shed too much. Almost there. You know, the trimming part sometimes is the longest part of the whole project, because depending on how small the pieces are, sometimes it takes you longer to trim than it actually takes the machine to sew the project. All right, there we go. So the next thing I want to do is I want to turn my hoop over to the wrong side. So I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to go ahead and trim some of these threads here. And then I'm going to be putting on the back of the ear and the back of the wing. So when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread. And I'm going to do that so that I have a clean finish on the back. All right, let's see, got most of those. The other way you can do this is to take a cigarette lighter or, barbecue torch and stuff and just kind of burn the edges. And the polyester thread will kind of sizzle right up for you. All right, so I am grabbing, let's see what piece I'm grabbing for this. So it looks like, is it this one? Yes. Let me check. If you're not sure, you can check your measurements in the front. So where it says ears and wings back should be 3 by 6. So ears front was 2 by 2. Ears, wings, and back is 3 by 6. So neither one of these other ones are 3 by 6. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this down. So when you tape at the back of the hoop, don't be careful not to press too hard, because what you could do is you could actually start moving your stabilizer out of the hoop. You're going to be able to really secure it from the front of the hoop when you can turn the hoop over. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So I'm just really kind of lightly taping. It's going to be okay though. This whole roll of tape has not torn. Oh, that's the first one that's torn cleanly. Okay. It just wants to tear all kinds of wonky ways. All right, so that's pretty flat. I'm going to push it over. And now I can do this from the front of the hoop because I'm not pushing my stabilizer or anything out of the hoop. And it looks like I pretty well have kept my tape out of the stitching area. All right, so we have completed step 13, and step 14 is to stitch the ears and wings back tack down lines and the ear alignment marks. So I'm going to go ahead and take that over there and to the machine and complete that step. All right, so I'm over here at the machine, and I actually did wind a bobbin in the dark gray thread. It was not requested. It was not on the list, but I'm looking at the picture on the front here. Let me see if I can get there. So not so much on the ears here. You see the back thread on the gray. On the wings, you definitely are going to see the back of the thread. And right now I had white bobbin thread in there, so I don't want to see that on my gray. So as a personal choice, I went ahead and wound a little bit of the darker gray thread onto a bobbin so that I would not have white on the back, that my back thread would match my front. Again, not stated in the pattern, not necessary, really, if it's not going to bother you. Don't worry about it. It's you likely won't see it on the ears because the piece is so tiny. But the wings do extend outside of the jar lid, so I will see it there. All right. So let's see where we're at now. So I have just got completed taping, and we have completely covered everything from the back of the hoop. So my gray is on the back of the hoop. And then I'm going to stitch the ears and wings tack down line and the ear alignment marks. So I'm going to do that now. And if I want a clean finish, so sometimes when you do embroidery, if you just push go, then sometimes you get a few threads that kind of knot up together, and it's not pretty. So I always believe that if I do needle down, needle up, and then I give it a tug, doing it using thread that's the same color is definitely going to help. Pulling up your bobbin thread allows you to not have a big tie off there. But it also means you have to do it for each of the 4 pieces. All right, so it's stopped a little bit. I'm going to take my snips. This is where these guys really come in handy. I'm going to grab that extra thread there and snip. And then I'll manually stop the machine so that I can do it again when it gets to the other ear. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like on the back. So these are all also ear placement lines. So as soon as I hear it cut, I push my start button, and that's going to stop my machine for me. So I'm going to raise my presser foot up, grab my top thread, do needle down, needle up, grab that bobbin thread, and just push go. I'm gonna let it sew a few stitches just to anchor it. I'm not pulling, I'm just holding on to it. Once it sews a few stitches, I will stop, lift up my presser foot, and the fact that this has got that little hook on it makes it easy for me to just like slip in there and clean that out. I heard it cut. I'm pushing my start stop button. So that way it still moves into place. Put up, needle down, pull my bobbin thread up, down, and go. And again, I'm going to let it start stitching. And then I'm going to stop. And I'm going to use to cut off my excess threads. You're going to be amazed at how clean the back of this is when we get done. Oops. I almost forgot, didn't I? You would have caught me though, huh? So I'm just going to pull that out. And then grab my bobbin thread. Because I do want to do the knot to tie off, I'm going to use my needle plus minus and minus back 2 stitches because that's how many stitched before I caught it. All right. So I have completed step number 14. Step number 15 is to remove the hoop from the machine, turn the hoop to the back, and trim the felt close to the stitch line. And then I'm going to change my bobbin thread to match the top thread and stitch the wing edge satin stitch. So I needed some purple. I thought it had me do pink. Nope, it had me do purple, and I think I did pink. Oh well, no worries. I'll line some purple. I will meet you over at the table. All right, I'm going to pull the tape off, but look at how clean that finish is. You just don't see a whole lot of wads of thread underneath there when you pull the bobbin thread up. Again, I want to be careful pulling this tape up because I don't want to really pull my stabilizer, but I can now just go in there and trim those. If I can find the little trim I had. Oh, there they are under the hoop. All right, let's see if I can. I'm going to move this over here so I can get a little closer over here at the edge of the table. So if you heard me tell you to wind pink thread at the beginning of the video here, it was wrong. You need to wind purple. So I just got done doing that. So by the time all I've got to trim here is just the tie off. The start threads were already trimmed at the beginning when I started. So literally there's nothing, left to trim. They're just, they're fine. So I'm going to go ahead and trim now the excess belt. And you want to kind of be careful. Don't push really hard because you want to maintain your hoop and not push your stabilizer forward. So just slow and steady. Don't try to rush it. You're really only using just the front half of the scissor.
know why she's been like this all day today.
All right, so just getting this done, and I'm being very gentle so that I don't push my stabilizer out of the hoop. You'll see if it looks like I have to struggle to get the scissor in somewhere. I'm just going to cut in a different area, and usually that means that by the time you get around to where your scissor was stuck over here, it's not stuck anymore. See? All right. All right, so I'm going to go put this back on my hoop. And I did wind some purple bobbin thread. I don't know how I missed that. I mean, it was like one's purple, one's pink. How could I have gotten that one wrong? But I did. So don't wind pink. If you already wound pink, I'm sorry. You still need to wind purple. I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. All right. If you're following along on your sheet, then you probably didn't wind pink. You probably did wind purple. So we are on step number 16, color stop number 7. And if you'll notice in the upper left corner of that little square, that there's a little spool of thread right there. And that's indicating that your bobbin is going to be changed to that color. And it's highlighted in gray to change the bobbin thread to match the top thread. And then for the purple, and then the next step is going to be the wing detail. Again, we're going to put the gray bobbin in. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead. Do I need to pull my bobbin thread up? I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to see the back. So I'm going to go ahead and do needle down, needle up. And I'm going to pull that bobbin thread up. So my bobbin thread matches, and then I'm just going to hang on to that. And I'll stop and I will cut those excess threads and then go. All right, we're done, but let's look again. So we are on color stop number 8, step number 17. And if you'll notice, there's that bobbin again. That means we're changing out the bobbin to the light gray. So I'm just going to take my hoop off and going to take out my purple bobbin and put in my light gray bobbin. And then switch out my purple thread to my light gray thread. All right, here we go. So now we are getting ready. Let's see what we're sewing with this one. I think we're going to do some wing detail here, but let's look. So we are doing stitch the wing detail. So it's going to sew right here on the front of our wings. Not very many stitches, just a few. Oops. I keep forgetting, don't I? All right, let me pull that out. And I'm going to do needle down, needle up, and pull my bobbin thread up. That's that old stitch. And sew that wing detail. It just gives me less stitches to trim at the end. Off the back. Again, you know, I'm not really concerned too much with the ears because those are small. And most of them are on the jar. But the wings are off of the jar top. And you don't have to do this at all. I just know for me that I don't really like it if I have all that wadded thread in there. So I'm going to go where I think I'm going to see it. I'm going to accommodate. All right. So I am, now that I'm done with these two parts, I'm going to take my gray out and I'm going to go ahead and put my, or do I want to leave that on? It doesn't, I might want to leave that on because it looks like I'm going to stitch down the upper wings and do a tack down line. And I'm not sure. Let's see what we got here. We are on color stop 9, stitch the upper wings placement line. And then we're going to place the upper wings felt. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave. Trim the felt. Trim the. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave the gray in. I can go ahead and do that and still have, or I can put my dark gray in. I'll put my dark gray in. So if you look at the back now, you'll see that you really only have a couple places that you need to trim. And this is after doing them all. And it's really a clean finish. All right.
I'll be back.
All right. Just being picky me. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my dark because all of this is done in the dark gray. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my dark gray thread. Me being picky, and that's fine. If you're not, don't worry about it. Just leave your light gray in or put your white bobbin thread back in. But I know I'm gonna see the wings from the jar lid. If I open the jar and put something in the jar, I'm gonna see the white on the back of the wings. I won't be this picky, I promise, with the jar front. How funny is that? Oops, sorry about that. All right, so just a placement line, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead, and we are sewing color stop number 9. It is step number 18, which we are stitching the placement line. So we're just going to do the placement line there. And then we're going to place the upper wing felt. All right, so let me show you what the difference is when you don't pull up the bobbin thread. All right. Can you see that there? That's what you get when you don't pull up the bobbin thread. That's the part that I don't like when I'm going to see it. I mean, I can cut it. It's just a placement line. I can certainly trim it out. But all of those places where I pulled up my bobbin thread, when I rinse my excess stabilizer off, I'm not going to see any knots. I'm just not going to see them. And I like that. All right. So right side of the hoop, grab that piece of felt that is 2 by 6 and place it over your wings. You can tape it down if you want. You can spray base it if you want. And you're gonna, I'm gonna go ahead and tape, and we're gonna do the tack down line for this, and then we're gonna trim it. And then we're gonna be done with this part anyway. Put a piece of tape here, and a piece of tape here. I guess what I'm gonna do. You just already know, don't you? I'm gonna pull up my bobbin thread. Let me get my purple out of the way. It was on my thread stand. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing. All right, we're finished embroidering. So I am going to go ahead and take the hoop off the machine. I'm going to come back here and trim this, and then I'm going to cut these pieces out. All right, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to clip those little stitches first. See how nice, I love it when I just take the time to do that. All right, and then I am going to trim around here. I will take the tape off, and now we don't have to worry because we're done. We can actually even take it out of the hoop at this point, but sometimes it's easier to trim if it's still in the hoop. All right, so now I'm going to pull this out of the hoop. And the last step on the wings part, which is step number 23, is to trim the stabilizer about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of everything. I'm all for, if you can get through, if you can get closer to that than that without cutting through your lines, your stitching lines, go for it. You're not going to soak these. You're just going to use like a cotton swab, or what I like is I like the foam makeup sponges. I just buy them in bags of like 100 from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. It's like under $10 for 100 of them. And then I just use those to clear around, to go around the edges. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get rid of everything I can get rid of, all of the excess. So I'm not dragging all of this around with me. So all of this other stuff can just go in the trash. But I do want just the pieces and minimal that I have to trim. And then the rest can just go in the garbage. And then you might notice on your wings here that you have this area in the front here that just has stabilizer. You can use a Q-tip swab to get that stabilizer out of there if you want. My guess is that's a placement line, so that when we put the top part of the jar lid on, that's where we're going to know where to position our wings. But when you turn your wings over, aren't you glad that you did tie off some of those threads, and all of this isn't white bobbin thread showing? I am. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and again, I'm going to use the same scissors. Just going to trim around it. I'm going to go, I probably won't even soak mine before I finish off the jar lid. So I'm going to just go ahead and trim as close as I can, all the way up to the gray. Could probably trim from the back here. So I can get pretty close. And the rest of that I can just get with this a wet makeup sponge. The makeup sponges I can reuse. The swabs, not so much. So in the long run, I think I come out better. Right, there's that. Okay, 2 wings down. And then there's the ears. All right. So that's all there is to this part. So I am going to move on to the next part, which is going to be the remainder of our pieces. And I will see you at the machine. Okay, here we are. I have my last piece of stabilizer, which is my cutaway stabilizer. And I'm going to go ahead and place that in my 5x7 hoop, making sure to put the arrow at the top of the hoop. And since my no-show mesh is about the same weight as my wash away, I don't really have any hoop adjustments to make here. Right. So I'm going to look at what's going on here. I have changed back to my regular white bobbin. I also know that from doing previous jar toppers, this outside area of the jar lid is going to be tucked on the inside. So if you look at the picture on the front, you'll see that that some of that's going to get tucked, some of the purple is going to get tucked inside the jar lid. So as it gets out towards the outer perimeters, let's not worry about what color we use because you're not going to see it anyway. So in this case, I went ahead and I threaded to purple thread because I'm going to be stitching the placement for my background fabric. I'm going to be stitching the background tack down line. I'm going to be stitching the jar lid placement line and the foam placement line, and then the flexi foam tack down and the ear placement line. And I'm not really getting to any color that matters until I think page 8. So I'm just going to leave my purple in for now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the machine and this over to the machine, and I will meet you over there. All right, so I have brought up my jar lid design. Again, remember, this is not the wide mouth that we're doing. This is the one that would fit in a 4x4 hoop. I'm just using my 5x7. So I've loaded that file and I'm ready to stitch. So I have actually 15 color stops in this one. Doesn't mean I need 15 colors, just means it's going to stop for me to do something 15 times. So I am on part 2, stitching the bat face and assembly. I've hooped my light mesh stabilizer. I've loaded my embroidery design. I've changed my bobbin out to the white traditional embroidery bobbin, and I am going to stitch that placement line for the fabric. And I am going to spray base KK100 rather than tape it. The nice thing about this is if you look at your directions, so we won't really be trimming this background fabric until we're almost done. So I'm just going to kind of take a peek from here, and then let me take a peek up there and over here. Just want to make sure that I've given myself plenty of workaround room, and I have. All right. So I am running color stop number 2 to stitch the background tack down line. And it's kind of a different stitch. It's not really a straight line. All right. So on your next one, which is color stop number 3, where it says stitch the jar lid placement line. When you go to assemble this or put it on the jar, you're going to be using this line to align the metal cap that's on the jar, okay? To make sure that your jar topper gets in there evenly. So I suggest that for this one only, that you put in a bobbin thread that is a different color so that you know exactly where that lid has to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave my purple on top, but I'm gonna use some of this pink that I wound that I didn't need. I'm gonna use some of that for just this one color stop, because when I'm done, from the back of my jar lid, I'm gonna see exactly where I need to place my lid. And so when I go to actually, what I did on the other ones that I did is I just spray basted the back and then stuck it to the metal lid. But this is going to show me exactly where to place that lid. And I'll show you when I get done stitching here. It's just, you don't have to do it. It just makes it easier. You notice I still left my purple on the top. All right. So I can see that pink line. That pink line is exactly where my jar lid goes. So if I will have other lines that will go there as I begin to stitch for the rest of the jar lid. And you can see on these, I definitely don't pull up my bobbin thread because it doesn't matter. You're not going to see it. This part's going to be on the inside of the jar. And but my jar lid fits perfectly inside that pink circle. So I'm going to go back to my regular traditional bobbin thread. The only reason why I changed out to the pink was so that I could see my placement line, which in this case, the placement line for the jar lid for the metal part is actually on the wrong side of the embroidery, not the right side. So I'm switching out to, and it doesn't have to be pink, it could be any color. A lot of times, a lot of us will keep red bobbin thread around for that as well. All right. So now we're on stitch the foam placement line. Again, I'm not anywhere near using gray felt yet. So I've got a little ways to go yet. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with my purple, and this is going to be the placement line for my flexi foam. And I am going to spray base my flexi foam as well. This is going to give our little bat a little 3D face. All right, and just stitch the tack down there, and then I will stop to trim it away. So if you're following along, we are on step number 9, the tack down for the flexi foam. And I just spray basted mine. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim the foam close to the stitching line. And then when you get up here, when you trim your foam, when you get up here to these areas here, there's going to be another line that's going to sew there. That's going to be your placement line for your ear. So if nowhere else, right there, try to get as close as you possibly can to your tack down line. All right, so let me flip over to the table. Take your time. Trimming foam sometimes can be just a little bit challenging, but I know you're up for the task. So these are going to be the slots for our bat wings, no doubt. And then our ears. All right. Look at that. All right, so my next step is going to be, let's see what our next step is. Oops, there's my jar lid just hit the floor. So I've trimmed, and the next stitch is to stitch the ear placement lines, and then to tape the ears down and tack them down. So I'm going to go ahead and change to my dark gray thread on the top, only because I'm approaching gray felt. So I'll take my purple off, I'll put my gray on. All right, so this is going to it's going to sew out my placement lines for my ears. All right, so I'm gonna just slide this forward a little bit and tip down. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to place my ears. And let's make sure we get the ears going in the right direction, because you know what? That doesn't look like a bat to me. That looks a little bit better. So make sure that you get your ears in the right, correct direction. And so these are the placement lines. So the ear has to go right up to that placement line. I don't believe it covers the foam. Let me take a peek. Oh, it looks like it might. It looks like you want to tape them. You want to line up, place each previously prepared ear right side up, overlapping the placement line by 1/4 of an inch and fitting the bottom tab into a cutout in the foam. Be sure the ear alignment marks from part 1, direction 14, are aligned over the ear placement lines, and then place tape in place. Okay, so these are the placement lines here, and those are the lines that we want to align. So this guy has to align here. So yeah, it does overlap. Let me get some tape. All right, so I want to make sure that that aligns. And then I'm going to start by taping down the top of the ear and then come and tape down the bottom of the ear, because I think it's less likely to move that way. All right. So the top, there's that placement line. There's that placement line. I'm going to tape down the top of the ear first and then the bottom. All right. And then it's going to tack our ears down. All right. If you're worried that this is going to go too fast, if you're on a Brother Baby lock machine, you can press and hold your start button and it won't speed up on you. It'll just stay going at slow speed till you let go. See there? Keeping going. It's not going anywhere. But if I let it go, it does. But sometimes having those slow stitches as you start out is nice. So I'm just holding in my start stop button so it can get started, so that my bat ears don't move. And then now that I have a few stitches in, I can let it go. All right, so let's get that tape off and see what comes up next. All right. So we are finishing up on the last step on page 7. If you're following along, flipping over to page 8. And ooh, we're going to stitch the wing placement line. So I'm going to go ahead and let that run. All right, now I want to overlap the placement line by 1/4 of an inch. And amazingly enough, the 1/4 inch is that little piece that got left behind. So I'm going to do the same thing. Even though I'm going to cover this with wash away topping, I'm still going to tape these down just so that they don't move underneath the wash away topping.
Yeah, I was changing the corner anymore.
So I'm just going to put this. Where do I want to put this? Maybe I can, because the topping is going to be over it, but I do want to tape them down. All right. It's going to be stitch the face placement line. Okay. If I have to, I will remove the topping from a little bit of the corner up there, but I don't want my wings to move. I want them to stay exactly where I put them for the next step. All right, those fit in there. I'm going to take my topping, the clear topping. If you look at step 17, that's what we're doing next. Oh, we're going to tack down the wings. Good, I'm glad. So wing tack down line. I didn't think we were. I thought we were going to sew with just the topping. So this is great. It'll give me a chance to pull off my tape. All right, so we want to place our wash away topping so that it completely covers the bottom of the ears, which is where we attach them, and the wings. So let's see how that's going to work. Here's my topping, completely covering the wings. And part of the ears. Okay. All right, here's that. Okay. And then I am going to stitch the face placement line. So here we go. I'm going to now place my gray for the face, and I am going to spray base that. I'm going to take that piece of gray felt and place it over my face placement line. And then I will go ahead and tack it down into place. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim the felt close to the stitching line. Be careful when you trim that felt that you don't trim your wash away, your topper, because if you look and pay on step number 22, our topper is still left behind. So don't trim that. You're just trimming the felt. So once you're sure that you're in the right space, you should be able to kind of cruise along without cutting that bottom. Just make sure wherever you start, you don't cut the topper, and then you can just kind of slide the bottom part of the scissor right on the topper. This is going to be so cute. These jar toppers are adorable. I think it's a perfect size for candy corn. I know nobody likes candy corn, I don't think, but me. I don't like a lot of it, but I do like it. All right, so I got this trimmed. This looks like it could use just a little bit, right? More right here. Okay, so this is what we should be looking like now. We've got our face on. We've got our wings and our ears are on. And we should still have our little topper on. So we're going to now stitch the decorative outline that goes around here. And then we're going to stitch the nose. So actually everything we're doing now is, I think, just stitching. So until we get done. So I'm just going to go ahead and direct from the machine until we're done. Okay. So we are looking at doing step number 21, which is step number 22, which is the decorative outline. So, and just in case you can't even remember what bobbin I have in right now, because I've changed them so many times, I do have my white traditional bobbin in. This won't show. All of this on the back here will be on the metal lid. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm not pulling thread because I don't need to. So I'm using the dark gray and I'm doing the decorative stitch. All right, so step number 23 is to stitch the nose detail. So I'm going to need my pink for that.
Is this your new haircut? So all I have is sunlight bottle. I bought natural center and I helped it.
All right, so I'm changing to my light gray to stitch the nose detail and the fang fills. Ooh, fangs. He's so cute, isn't he? He's really shaping up. All right, so the next step that we're going to do, you'll need your embroidery topping. And that step's actually, the stitch out on that is going to be in black thread. So I'm going to grab that as well. So embroidery topping, what this is this is stuff that, think of it like this topping, only it's not transparent. But what it does is it gives you a really dark base. It can accentuate dark embroidery, you know, blacks and stuff. It can also camouflage any white bobbin thread show through. So that's what we're going to use it. I'm using it for, in this case, is for that, because I don't have a black bobbin, and I'm not going to change my bobbin again. I'm done. This is good. I'm going to use my topper instead. That's why we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and change out to my black thread. This is our last stitch. And then we'll be able to get this all on our jar, and it's going to be just the cutest little bat ever. All right, so I can take this down. Let me get this little piece of thread out of here. But I wonder if I can just hang on to it. Okay, maybe I'll just put some tape over here on the side. Oh my gosh, we're done. Okay, let's get this on our jar lid. All right, just taking this off. So just tear gently. You just have a little bit underneath that, the smile part. And you're going to have some jump stitches in here to trim, where it went from one eye to the other. So that's where these little snippers come in really handy. Look at how cute that is. All right, let's get this part off. All right. Ooh, look at how cute he is. All right, I'm gonna get my jar lid, and then we're gonna trim all the way around this outside edge. Gonna trim, leaving about 1/8 of an inch from the background tack down. So that's that outside line. Remember, we have a placement line on the inside that was pink, right? So I'm going to kind of bend his little wings out of the way. Again, I really like to get the excess stabilizer out of the way, so I'm not dragging it all around with me. So I'm going to use the big scissors to get rid of everything except for just, and that way it makes it, to me, it makes it much easier to cut if you're not dragging stabilizer around. And you can trim from this side or you can trim from this side, doesn't matter. You're going to go 1/8 of an inch away. You can see it quite well on either side. So So there's a couple of different ways that you can, I think positioning is easier if you can actually, of the outer ring of the jar is easier if you can keep this from moving. All right. So what I did is I went ahead and put spray based on the lid, on the metal part, and then put this here. Okay. So I spray based it, which is what I'm going to do. And that guy kind of gives it holds it in place enough for you to grab the wings, put them forward, and then put the jar ring on. You certainly could glue it. It's not, no problem with that. However, if you spray based, then you need the jar for the next season. You can actually take your bat off, put him away, and put Rudolph on. So I'm gonna just do the base because that's temporary. So, and I am gonna give it quite a bit. All right, quite a bit of base there. I'm gonna take my jar lid and I'm gonna set it within those pink lines. And because I have the spray based on it, it's sticking, it's not going anywhere. So that it makes it easy for me to fold its wings and then put the inner ring over it. Okay, wings, cooperate. Let's put them there. We have to, oh, it's just kind of like Dracula. We have to fold them forward and put that down. And then we're going to place the ring over the outside. And isn't that cute? Oh my gosh, the cutest. Thanks for hanging out with me and changing bobbin threads 90 times and just having relatively fun Halloween. Yeah, it's my favorite season. Thanks. Bye.